After a long time working hard, the Golden Week had finally arrived. The protagonist, Yuuta Morizono, was very excited as he had 11 consecutive days off. Yuuta planned to stay at home and conquer all of his games and manga. Before starting his Golden Week, Yuuta first bought a lot of food at the supermarket. When Yuuta went out to the parking lot, he was puzzled to find himself in a desolate place, with the supermarket nowhere to be found. Yuuta became more worried when he noticed that his phone had no signal. He was confused and curious about where the supermarket had gone. Wondering where he currently was, Yuuta noticed that there were no signs of people or traffic around. Thinking that he was stuck, Yuuta hoped a plane might come by and find him. The thought of a plane gave Yuuta a little hope. As Yuuta was about to make an SOS signal, he was shocked to see a baby girl on the trolley. Yuuta was certain that the baby girl had not been on the trolley before and wondered if the sunlight was playing tricks on his mind. Yuuta became more optimistic, thinking that there were other people living in the area. He calmly asked the little girl where she came from and where her parents were. To his surprise, the little girl asked Yuuta if he could really see her. Wondering if the little girl was some kind of invisible creature, Yuuta noticed that her hair didn't look human at all. Touching the little girl's head, Yuuta thought she was cute. Realizing that he was touching her head, Yuuta immediately apologized. However, the little girl only became more excited upon learning that Yuuta could also touch spirits. Yuta's jaw dropped when he saw the little girl flying. Hearing her mention that he could see spirits, Yuuta immediately thought he had been transported to another world, like in the light novels he had read. Composing himself, Yuuta asked the little girl where they were. When the little girl told him they were in the land of the dead, Yuuta became nervous and thought it was just a play on words. He started panicking when he asked the little girl where the humans lived, but she did not know what a human was. Yuuta then asked if she knew someone who knew about humans. The little girl responded that she did and immediately left Yuuta to call someone. Watching her fly away, Yuuta hoped things would be fine once she returned. When the little girl came back, Yuuta could not hide his red face after seeing a beautiful elf. The elf became more intrigued upon learning that Yuuta could see and touch them. While introducing himself to the spirits, Yuuta could not hide his excitement as the elf was wearing a seductive outfit. Since Yuuta had the ability to see them, the elf wondered if Yuuta was really human. Surprised, Yuuta apologized and told the elf he didn't see anything. Confused, the elf remembered that she hadn't introduced herself. The elf introduced herself as Sylphy, the mighty spirit of wind. When Yuuta asked Sylphy about the little girl, Sylphy revealed that the little girl didn't have a name yet because she was still a low-level spirit. Yuuta decided to just call her Spirit for the time being. Yuuta felt embarrassed talking so casually to the beautiful Sylphy. When he asked how long it would take him to reach a human city, Yuuta was speechless when Sylphy told him that the nearest place would take about 100 days. Thinking that he might have heard Sylphy wrong, Yuuta asked her to repeat what she said, but he ended up facing the harsh reality that it would indeed take him around 100 days to reach a human city. Seeing Yuuta cry, Sylphy apologized and explained that she really wanted to bring him there, but she couldn't lend her strength to anyone who didn't have a contract with her. Yuuta pleaded with Sylphy to form a contract with him. Sylphy then told Yuuta that they couldn't form a contract without doing the thing. Yuta's emotions were mixed as Sylphy touched his lips and told him she just wanted to confirm it. Yuuta didn't expect that the thing Sylphy wanted to check was his status. He was surprised to see his status resemble a system in a game world. Seeing that Yuta's magical power was only at F, Sylphy told him up front that she couldn't form a contract with him. Although Sylphy thought it would be interesting to form a contract with Yuuta, his level wasn't high enough to even form a contract with the little girl. Left with no other option but to walk for 100 days, Sylphy told Yuuta that things would get much worse for him as he was currently at level 1, which meant that in their world, Yuuta was even weaker than a kid. Since there were many distinctive monsters, Sylphy wished to see if Yuuta could survive 100 days or not. Feeling that Sylphy somewhat disliked him, Yuuta thought he might have come to a troublesome place. Sylphy shared that the land of the dead was a wasteland that took up 2/3 of the mainland. In the past, the land had been rich and vibrant, but because of human wars, it had been severely destroyed and left as only wild land. Yuuta was shocked to learn that there were also wars happening in their world. He thought that if he ever reached that human city, there might be a chance that a war was ongoing there. Yuuta now wondered why the world was so harsh to him. As someone who came from another world, Yuuta thought he should at least have a special ability. Hearing a sound, Yuuta was surprised when many items suddenly appeared. Realizing that he had some special ability, Yuuta was very eager to try them out. After touching the pop-up window, an item appeared in front of Yuuta. The item was called a magic backpack, which had unlimited space. Time didn't work inside the bag, and didn't cause any burden to the wearer. Both Sylphy and Spirit were very curious about Yuta's skill, and wished to see what the item could do. Trying out his ability, Yuuta touched the trolley and stored it in the magic backpack. While Yuuta was still curious about how the magic backpack worked, Spirit couldn't hide her excitement, believing that Yuta's skill was very rare. Wondering if the other tools were like the magic backpack, Yuuta thought that the trip to the human city would become much easier. Knowing the possibility that a war was breaking out in the human city, Yuuta wondered if he should continue going there. Stretching out her left arm, Sylphy told Yuuta to prepare his weapon, as there were monsters hiding behind the rock. Being asked for help, Yuuta became nervous and wondered which weapon he should use. In a panic, Yuuta chose the magic hammer. Realizing that the monster was only a dead lizard, Sylphy believed that Yuta's hammer would be enough to defeat it. Hearing Sylphy's words, Yuuta thought that a level 1 like him should be able to manage surviving in their world. However, upon seeing the death lizard, Yuuta no longer felt any relief. Observing the death lizard's characteristics, Yuuta thought that the monster's name should be changed to a dragon rather than a small lizard. Lost in thought, Yuuta was surprised when the death lizard pounced on him. Fortunately for Yuuta, he swung at the right time, which obliterated the death lizard. Although Yuuta didn't look cool defeating the death lizard, Sylphy still praised him for getting his first victory. Seeing Yuuta speechless, Sylphy asked what was wrong. Yuuta shared that his hands felt nothing. After explaining what he felt after swinging his hammer, Sylphy suggested that Yuuta try smashing the ground as hard as he could. Smashing the ground, Yuuta was surprised to see the damage his hammer could do. Sylphy then told Yuuta that if he could get used to the hammer, the effect would be more or less similar to what he had just done. Seeing the danger of his tool, Yuuta thought that he should be much calmer next time. Yuuta then shared his idea of using his development tools to live in the land of the dead, and asked Sylphy if she was willing to help him make his idea into a reality. Although Yuuta only mentioned his idea in the heat of the moment, he wonders if Sylphy, a top-class spirit, would even entertain his idea. Yuuta was beginning to doubt that such an amazing spirit like Sylphy would listen to such an imprudent request. However, to Yuta's surprise, Sylphy agreed to assist him with the restoration. After being asked by Yuuta if she was joking, Sylphy told him that she could only give simple advice since they didn't have a contract. Having the feeling that she couldn't leave Yuuta alone in the wasteland, Sylphy was also intrigued and wanted to know more about him. Very eager, Sylphy asked Yuuta what they were going to do first. Seeing Sylphy willing to help, Yuuta thought they would need to secure a water source. The drinks that Yuuta was currently holding were mainly sake and 2 bottles of 2-liter black tea. With the heat in the wasteland, Yuuta was sure that the drinks would only last for a few days. Sylphy mentioned unfortunate news to Yuuta, informing him that there was no place in the wasteland that had running water. However, Sylphy had an idea where Yuuta could find some water, which was in the former wetlands region. The former wetlands region was once abundant with water before it became part of the land of the dead. Nowadays, though the region is arid, there's no certainty that water will ever come out. If Yuuta was still fine searching for water in the former wetlands, Sylphy had no problem guiding him. Sylphy then told Yuuta that the journey would take at least 2 days by foot. Yuuta thought that 2 days by foot would be enough. However, he became worried about the chance that they would not be able to find any water there. Becoming more optimistic, Yuuta asked Sylphy to show him the way. On their way to the former wetlands, Sylphy noticed that Yuuta was already on the ground even though they hadn't walked that far. Yuuta apologized to Sylphy as he no longer had enough strength to walk. After being jumped on by Spirit, Sylphy suggested to Yuuta that he stand up right away, or he would become Spirit's toy. Due to the heat and fatigue, Yuuta could no longer move his body, which made him wonder if his low stats were somewhat related. Approaching Yuuta, Sylphy told him that if he just hung in there, they would take a break over there. Seeing the location where Sylphy was looking, Yuta's eyes brightened upon seeing the sea. Feeling the cold water on his feet, Yuuta did not expect such a place to exist in the wasteland. Feeling the nice breeze, Yuuta spoke out loud how Sylphy looked pretty. Teasing Yuuta, Spirit immediately flew towards Sylphy, informing her of what Yuuta said. However, Yuuta was fortunate as Sylphy thought the compliment was meant for the sea and not her. Yuuta thought that if they dived, they might even catch some fish. Thinking that Yuuta wanted to go for a swim, Sylphy revealed that there were strong monsters in the sea, and that it would only take 10 seconds for the monsters to kill him. Listening to Sylphy, Yuuta immediately decided to give up. Yuuta thought that if he used the development tools, he'd somehow make it. However, Yuuta realized the reality that it was not easy. In order to survive in the wasteland, Yuuta planned to get stronger by leveling up. Hearing that Yuuta wished to level up, Sylphy suggested that he beat the nighttime monsters. When Sylphy mentioned that the monsters would be weak and easy to defeat, Yuuta immediately had his suspicions and reminded Sylphy of what she had told him about the death lizard. Being questioned by Yuuta about the nighttime monsters, Sylphy became annoyed and planned to look for more death lizards instead. Realizing that he had angered Sylphy, Yuuta apologized and agreed to fight the nighttime monsters. To prepare for some midnight fighting, Yuuta decided to make something to eat first. Using his magic shovel, Yuuta was surprised when he was able to dig out the huge rock as if it were pudding. The magic shovel also had the same effect as the magic hammer, which could extend to 2 meters in size whenever Yuuta wanted. After digging out the top part of the rock with a shovel, Yuuta then put in the washed-up wood they found at the beach, and successfully made a stove. Beginning with the troublesome part, Yuuta wondered if his way of making a fire would work. Curious, Sylphy asked Yuuta what he was doing. After hearing Yuta's explanation, Sylphy wondered why he didn't just use ember. Surprised, Yuuta thought that Sylphy was a wind spirit and did not expect her to be capable of casting a fire element. Sylphy corrected Yuuta that she was a great spirit and asked if he knew the common livelihood magic. Sylphy explained that the livelihood magic could be used by anyone as long as they had magical power. One of the simple ones was ember, which Sylphy just showed Yuuta. Wondering if he could also use the same ability, Yuuta asked how to use ember. Wrapping her arms around Yuuta, Sylphy instructed him to point to the place where he wanted the ember to appear and chant the name of the spell. Casting the spell perfectly, Yuuta became excited and claimed that he was now a magician. Now that Yuuta was able to start a fire, he then proceeded to cook the food. Since Yuuta had no cooking equipment, he decided to use the shovel in place of the pan. With no water with them, Yuuta chose to cook pasta carbonara. Seeing the food burning, Yuuta became frantic and tried to lower the flame. Using tree branches as chopsticks, Yuuta was able to somehow finish cooking the pasta. Praising the food's looks and scent, Yuuta shared with the two that the food was called pasta. Learning that the world also had pasta, Yuuta only hoped that it had wheat-related products. When Sylphy told Yuuta to just call them when he was finished, Yuuta became puzzled and asked if they were not going to eat. Sylphy revealed that spirits did not need to eat. Knowing that it would be hard for Yuuta to eat while they were watching, Sylphy told him that they would just blend in with the wind and would meet up with him later. Eating the food, Yuuta found it delicious as the burnt part was crispy and gave off an amazing smell. Yuuta was about to speak to Sylphy when he remembered that they were not currently with him. At night, Yuuta finally met up with Sylphy. Upon seeing the nighttime monsters, Yuuta asked if those were really the monsters Sylphy called weak. It was revealed that the nighttime monsters were zombies and skeletons. Just like the death lizard, if they were destroyed completely, no resources would be collected. Sylphy suggested that Yuuta defeat the monsters while keeping his strength in check. However, Sylphy saw that Yuuta was no longer listening and was just covering his ears. Spirit asked Yuuta if he was scared. Yuuta answered that he was scared that the bones would curse him if he were to defeat them. If Yuuta were to get bitten by a zombie, he believed that he would most likely turn into a zombie as well. Confused, Sylphy asked Yuuta what he was talking about. Sylphy explained that a magical monster like a skeleton couldn't curse people. Zombies were just decayed bodies that had turned into magical monsters. A healthy human wouldn't turn into one just from being bitten. With a gloomy expression, Sylphy asked Yuuta if their world was really that dangerous. Having a hard time explaining the concept of zombies in his world, Yuuta then picked up his hammer as the monsters were starting to detect his presence. Yuuta tried to initiate the attack but was surprised when the skeleton retaliated with its weapon. Planning on getting rid of the armed skeletons first, Yuuta calmed himself down, as he would die with just one hit if he let his emotions run. Using less strength, Yuuta hit the skeleton with his hammer. However, the skeleton ended up being blown away. As the two shared a shocked expression, Sylphy asked Yuuta what he was doing and reminded him to hold back his strength. Yuuta apologized as he didn't expect the skeletons to be so fragile. Seeing that the zombies looked much heavier, Yuuta decided to eliminate them first. However, he was immediately stunned by the foul smell coming from the zombies. Once again, Yuuta was not able to hold back his strength and ended up squashing the zombies. Seeing something sparkling in the zombie's corpse, Yuuta informed Sylphy about it. Sylphy explained that it was called a magic stone, which Yuuta could exchange for money in a town. Thinking of how the magic stone was a waste, Sylphy cheered Yuuta up since there were still plenty of zombies and skeleton monsters they could defeat. Shocked, Yuuta asked if they were going to continue with the nighttime monsters. Sylphy told Yuuta that in order for him to level up, he would have to defeat lots of weak monsters. Seeing Yuta's hesitant look, Sylphy asked if he wished to fight the death lizards instead. More afraid of the death lizard, Yuuta was left with no other option than to fight more skeletons. Obtaining lots of magic stones, Spirit congratulated Yuuta for defeating tons of nighttime monsters. Learning how to keep his strength in check, Yuuta believed that his level should have gone up. Checking his status, Yuta's face brightened as he saw that he was now level 12. Seeing Yuta's magical power at D, Sylphy congratulated him. With Yuta's current magical power, he could now form a contract. Excited, Yuuta did not want to waste any more time and asked to form a contract with Sylphy. However, Sylphy revealed that they still wouldn't be able to form a contract, but instead Yuuta could now form a contract with the little girl. Surprised, Yuuta was not expecting that he would only be able to form a contract with the little girl. The little girl was very excited upon learning that she could form a contract with Yuuta. Although forming a contract is a good thing, Sylphy shared that it is not something to get too fired up about. For spirits, forming a contract with humans strengthens their links with the world, which also increases their rank. A person like Yuuta, who can touch and communicate with spirits, is something that is hard to come by. Agreeing to form a contract with the little girl, Yuuta asked Sylphy about the process of forming a contract. Sylphy explained that Yuuta just had to give the little girl a name, and the contract would be formed if the little girl accepted the name. Yuuta did not expect the process to be so simple. Normally, forming a contract is more complicated. Even though the spirit is of a low rank, they are still amazing beings that a person normally has a hard time forming a contract with. Staring at the little girl, Yuuta thought that he might not have a hard time forming a contract with her. Jumping on Yuta's face, the little girl was very eager and insisted that Yuuta give her a name already. Yuuta did not expect that he would have a hard time coming up with a name for the little girl. Choosing a name from a wind-related goddess, Yuuta came up with lots of options, but he still had a hard time choosing the most suitable name for the little girl. Seeing the little girl float, Yuuta was reminded of the bells, which made him decide to name the little girl Belle. Hugging Yuuta, Belle expressed how she liked the name very much. Finding the name to be very nice, Sylphy then congratulated Yuuta on forming a contract with Belle. Shocked, Yuuta doubted if he had really formed a contract with Belle, as he did not feel anything at all. Sylphy revealed that if Yuuta asked for Belle's spirit magic, he would be able to defeat ghosts and wraiths. Sylphy shared that ghosts and wraiths are magical beasts that physical attacks are ineffective against. Realizing that he wouldn't have the ability to defeat such monsters, Yuuta told Sylphy that he did not expect such monsters to exist. Sylphy once again reminded Yuuta to watch who he is fishing for so that he does not attract meddlesome foes. Yuuta became worried, thinking about the possibility that Belle might not be strong enough to deal with such monsters. Sylphy reassured Yuuta that Belle was strong enough. However, upon seeing Belle soundly asleep, Sylphy slowly began to doubt her words. Looking away, Sylphy told Yuuta that spirit magic is very strong. After waking Belle up, Yuuta was now about to face foes that his hammer might not be able to defeat. Doubtful, Yuuta asked Belle if she could really defeat the ghosts. Floating up in the air, Belle reassured Yuuta that she could defeat the ghosts and that Yuuta just needed to watch her. Using winds, Belle easily obliterated the ghost. With the spirit magic being demonstrated, Sylphy then told Yuuta once again that spirit magic is very strong. With a happy look on her face, Belle approached Yuuta and informed him that she had defeated the ghost. Seeing Belle's cute face, Yuuta realized that Belle tried her best for his sake. This made Yuuta decide to also give his all to praise her. With the ghost defeated, Yuuta became worried since it would give them a hard time finding magic stones. Yuuta was shocked when Sylphy revealed that ghosts and wraiths don't have magic stones since they don't have a physical body in the first place. Curious, Yuuta asked how such magical beasts existed in the first place. Sylphy believed that the magical beasts, like the ghosts, might have a deep attachment to the world. Sweating profusely, Yuuta decided not to think about it. Finally waking up, Yuuta thought that everything was not a dream, and that he did form a contract with Belle, and the two ended up falling asleep together. Before sleeping, Yuuta dug a cave inside the mountain to use as a bedroom. After storing the rock that covered the entrance to the cave, Yuuta did not expect to be greeted by such an amazingly bright sun. Yuuta was then greeted by Sylphy, seeing that he had now woken up. After greeting Sylphy, Yuuta then shared how he slept very well, as he was very exhausted from fighting monsters. Finally waking up, Belle then announced that she had woken up. Seeing that Belle really liked her name, Yuuta felt flattered. Eating breakfast before heading out, Yuuta made a quick meal by adding carbonara sauce on top of his bread. Yuuta did not expect that the combination of the two would sprout something delicious. Sylphy thought it was luxurious for Yuuta to eat white bread. She then revealed that in their world, only royalty and nobility got to eat such food. Since Sylphy knew what royal and noble families ate, Yuuta asked if she was acquainted with the nobility. Unable to respond at first, Sylphy explained that she just saw a lot, so she just knew. Yuuta realized that he needed to be careful not to carelessly do something weird. After having his meal, Yuuta and the two continued their journey toward the wetlands. During their journey, the two became worried for Yuuta, as they had been walking for some time already. Guessing that his body gaining strength was somehow related to his level, Yuuta increased his hope of securing a good water source. Upon arriving at their destination, Yuuta was shocked to see that the wetlands region was now just bone-dry and arid land. Staring at the dry land, Yuuta wonders if the place was really the wetlands region. Sylphy understands if Yuuta finds it hard to believe and makes him face the reality that humans were the cause. Sylphy then asks Yuuta to treat nature well. Seeing Sylphy's expression, Yuuta wonders how bad the wars between the world's inhabitants must be. Seeing the ground so dried up, Yuuta guessed that there would be no water left. Seeing Yuuta looking depressed, Belle asked if he was tired. Belle then offers to help Yuuta whenever he is tired since they've made a contract. After having some wind blown onto him, Yuuta thanked Belle as it helped him cheer up. Yuuta then realized how irresponsible it was of him to let a young Belle worry about him. With no plans of dying in the wasteland, Yuuta motivates himself while Belle cheers for him. After being asked by Sylphy about his next move, Yuuta plans to search the wetlands region for any places that might have water underground. Listening to Yuta's bright idea, Sylphy guessed that Yuuta would use another new tool of his. However, both Sylphy and Belle found it lame when Yuuta mentioned that he would instead rely on his luck. Not minding the two, Yuuta motivates himself to enhance his senses. Observing Yuuta, Sylphy thought that he was just doing some weird movements. Sylphy immediately covers Belle's eyes as Yuuta stretches out his arm as if grabbing something. Thinking about water, Yuuta was surprised when he was able to feel something soft. Thinking that it might be Sylphy's breast he was touching, Yuuta ended up looking confused as he saw that he was just holding some type of sphere. Sylphy reveals that what Yuuta is holding is a wandering spirit of the wind, which surprised Yuuta. The spirit is a newborn. Sylphy guessed that it came riding with the wind. Although the newborn spirit did not look exactly like Belle, it instead looked more like a Marimo to Yuuta. Thinking of the word Marimo, Yuuta connected it with where they could find a water source. Seeing a couple of wind spirits grouping themselves in one spot, Yuuta decided that they would dig where the wind spirits were gathering. Suspicious of Yuuta, Sylphy asked if he just randomly decided the location. Nervous that Sylphy might find out, Yuuta just tells her that his luck is telling him the location. Though it is a bit forceful, Yuuta hoped that his newfound chance holds something good for him. Entrusting his luck to the wind spirit, Yuuta then pulled out another magic tool called Magical Hand Auger. Familiar with the tool, Yuuta immediately started digging. Seeing the tool up close, Sylphy thought that it only looked funny and might even take them longer to dig for water. Yuuta then tells Sylphy to pay attention. All of a sudden, the area Yuuta was digging suddenly cracked. Seeing Sylphy's surprised expression, Yuuta explained that he only enlarged the part that was stuck in the ground. With the enlarged size, it would take no time for Yuuta to reach the water source. To make his work easier, Yuuta will also store the dirt he dug up in the pouch. While Yuuta works on digging a hole, he asks Sylphy to keep watch for any magical beasts. After some time, Yuuta was able to dig a couple of meters. Though Yuuta does not feel any strain, the simple labor is making him mentally fatigued. While wishing he had some music for entertainment, Yuuta noticed some dirt falling on him, which made him panic. It never crossed Yuta's mind that the possibility of getting caved in was real, as he never noticed any trembles while digging. Thinking of guarding himself, Yuuta plans to just enlarge his shovel to cover himself if he ever gets covered with dirt. Feeling nervous, Yuuta was surprised when Sylphy suddenly appeared in front of him. After Yuuta shouted, Sylphy was startled and became worried that the surrounding dirt would collapse on them. Although Yuuta worked quite hard, he does not feel that water will come out at all, and guesses that he just has to get out and look for another place. Observing the ground, Sylphy tells Yuuta that it would still take him a while based on how dead the soil looked. To get water out, Yuuta needs to dig to the point where the soil is alive. Yuuta thought things would work out even though it is a former wetlands region. However, he was now getting nervous, worried that he may not find living soil. Another problem Yuuta is now facing is that he is alone with Sylphy in a narrow space. Hearing his name called, Yuuta accidentally changed his manner of speech. Seeing that Yuuta dug up so much, Sylphy asks how he plans on getting out. Yuuta thought at first that he would just dig stairs in the wall to go up, but he became nervous thinking of the possibility that the ground would collapse. Instead of creating a set of stairs, Sylphy suggested that he just ask Belle to fly him out. Surprised, Yuuta did not think that Belle could make him fly. Yuuta imagined himself floating in the air like Belle. However, Sylphy tells Yuuta that such a thing is not possible for a low-ranking spirit to carry heavy objects for a long time. If Yuuta were to dig too deep, he may not be able to return to the surface. Estimating the current size of the hole, Sylphy guessed that Belle's magic power can still carry Yuuta around 3 times deeper. Knowing the limits, Yuuta tries to do his best to reach that point. He then asks Sylphy to inform Belle. Sylphy agrees. However, Yuuta becomes nervous when Sylphy says that she will inform Belle if she still remembers. Yuuta dug much deeper to the point that no light was reaching him. Hearing Belle's voice, Yuuta was surprised as he didn't notice her since he was so focused on digging. Yuuta was once again surprised as Belle created a light. Floating above Yuuta, Belle asks if digging is fun. Vaguely responding to Belle's question, Yuuta tells Belle that he is just doing his best because he wants water to come out. Agreeing with Yuuta, Belle commented that wind is also important. Yuuta agrees with Belle. However, at the moment, Yuuta prioritizes water as his life depends on it. Hearing Yuta's words, Belle was shocked and became annoyed at him. However, Belle's expression immediately changed after Yuuta pleaded for her help. Belle becomes happy again as Yuuta uses his words. After receiving Belle's permission to continue digging deeper, Belle then left him in the hole. Yuuta was starting to lose hope as he still did not find any living soil. All of a sudden, Yuuta felt something unusually thick. Getting excited, Yuuta was able to penetrate the hard object. However, he became disappointed upon seeing that it was still dirt. Observing more carefully, Yuuta noticed that the new dirt he dug up had a different color. Sensing something, Yuuta continued digging. With Yuta's luck, he finally found water. Yuuta was beyond relieved after solving his water problem. Staring at the water, Yuuta notices that it is unusually cloudy and wonders if it's because it just came out. Sylphy was amazed as she witnessed firsthand that Yuuta really found water. Seeing Yuta's gloomy face, Sylphy asks if there is a problem. Yuuta explained how everything was fine up to the point when the water emerged. Yuuta is worried whether the water is drinkable since it is so cloudy. Yuuta also doesn't have any tools to examine the water's quality. Even if Yuuta filters the water, it would take a lot of time to finish. Listening to Yuta's problem, Sylphy shared that his issue can be resolved immediately. Sylphy's words left Yuuta curious. The next day, a great water spirit named Dyne was called by Sylphy, as she wishes for Dyne to check the water that Yuuta found. Surprised seeing Dyne at first, Yuuta then wonders if it's really okay to have two great spirits in one place. Sylphy tells Yuuta that finding water in a desolate place is amazing, to the extent that the great spirits want to offer help to Yuuta. Speechless, Sylphy then tells Yuuta to introduce himself already. After Yuuta introduces himself, he then thanked Dyne for the help. Dyne is amused by how polite Yuuta is, and tells him that he doesn't need to add honorifics and calling her Dyne is just enough. Yuuta, on the other hand, was speechless as he couldn't remove his eyes from Dyne's figure. Inserting herself, Belle suddenly introduced herself, surprising Yuuta, and shared that Belle is a low-ranked spirit that he had formed a contract with. Yuuta couldn't help but be jealous seeing Belle hugging Dyne. When Sylphy and Yuta's eyes met, Sylphy's mood changed as she suspected that Yuuta was comparing her to Dyne. After telling Sylphy that he did not compare anything, Yuuta then changed the topic and asked Dyne to check the water for them. As everyone got into the hole, Dyne went ahead and inspected the water that Yuuta found. Putting her hand in the water, Yuuta was amazed as the water was now getting clearer. Sylphy reveals that the water Yuuta found is a great water source as it's flowing from living grounds through clean earth layers, which is totally fine to drink. Ecstatic, Yuuta was then speechless as Dyne pats his head and praises his hard work. Blushing, Yuuta couldn't take his eyes off Dyne's chest and thought of jumping on it. Observing Yuuta, Sylphy asks what he is fawning over. After telling Sylphy that he wasn't fawning over anything, Yuuta then noticed that Sylphy's chest suddenly looked smaller than the first time they met. Seeing Yuta's expression, Sylphy knows that Yuuta was definitely comparing her to Dyne. Hearing the two bicker, Dyne tells Sylphy not to be angry over small things. Enraged, Sylphy tells Dyne that her chest is not small. The two great spirits then started to argue about their cleavages, and how Dyne's is just unnecessarily large. Yuuta tried to tell the two not to make any noise. However, he was just ignored. Observing the two great spirits, Yuuta thought that he should watch out for the time being. Sighing, Yuuta was glad that he made it out of the wastelands. After securing drinkable water, Yuuta believes that things will work out for a while. Yuuta then thanked Dyne for helping him ensure the water was safe to drink. Yuuta then asked Dyne if she could lend him a hand in rebuilding the wasteland. When Yuuta learned that he could drink the water, he felt really relieved. Yuuta finds it reassuring to have someone as knowledgeable about water as Dyne with them. Listening to Yuuta, Dyne smiles. However, she apologizes and tells Yuuta that it is difficult at the moment. After being told to set up the circumstances, Yuuta becomes curious and asks Dyne how he should do that. Knowing that Yuuta has great tools, Dyne tells him to use his tools to strengthen the water source he found. Providing an illustration, Dyne tells Yuuta that the ground will be reinforced by rocks, and the entrance will widen in the shape of a funnel. If Yuuta can do what Dyne illustrated, she will lead the water up and make a pond. The task itself is difficult, which Dyne thought Yuuta might not be able to succeed in. Agreeing with Dyne that the task may take a fair amount of time, Yuuta then remembered that spirits couldn't use their power without forming a contract. Sylphy tells Yuuta that it is fine since they are making a water source in the land of the dead. It is enough to justify the duty of a water spirit. Yuuta would instead be praised rather than having the water spirits mad at him. Yuuta was determined to put in more effort since Dyne is already willing to cooperate with him in restoring the wastelands. In reinforcing the hole with rocks, Yuuta thought it would be fine if he collected big rocks with the shovel, processed them with a knife into a pipe shape, and dropped them down the hole. Seeing Yuta's expression, Sylphy cheers for him. If the circumstances are set up and spirits can live in the land of the dead again, the whole area will become fertile and comfortable to live in. The fact that the land of the dead is so barren is because of the absence of the spirits. The land of the dead, where the balance of nature has crumbled, is an uncomfortable place for spirits because their power is slowly being sucked out, which is why spirits don't go near the place. Realizing the meaning of Dyne's words, Yuuta then thought that both Sylphy and Belle would be in danger if they stayed long in the land of the dead. Sylphy reassures Yuuta that they are fine. as they are spirits of the wind. The wind flows through, even if it's the land of the dead. Sylphy still appreciated how Yuuta worries for them. Thinking of the place as really bad for great spirits, Sylphy reassures Yuuta that it will be alright, as she believes that when the circumstances have been set up, she will call other spirits to come over. Hearing Sylphy's comforting words, Yuuta was now more determined to fix the land of the dead. As they are about to excavate some big rocks, Yuuta asks Sylphy if they can go to the sea once more. Yuuta was sure that building the pond would take some time and plans to gather some fish first. Having an increased level and Belle with him, Yuuta believed that he would be fine. Listening to Yuuta and Sylphy's conversation, Dyne tells Yuuta that she has called out a low-ranked spirit. If Yuuta were to form a contract with the low-ranked spirit, Dyne reassures him that he will be able to catch a fish. Ecstatic, Yuuta was now curious about who the low-ranked spirit Dyne was talking about. Dyne tells Yuuta that the spirit will be coming over through clean water. As Dyne calls out the low-ranked spirit inside the hole, Yuuta, on the other hand, hoped that the spirit would get along with Belle. Yuuta even imagined that the spirit might be a smaller version of Dyne. As water came out of the hole, Yuuta was speechless after seeing the low-ranked spirit that Dyne called. Yuuta did not expect that the spirit would look so much like a dolphin. Surprised to see a spirit without a human form, Yuuta guessed there must be many different kinds of spirits. Sylphy told Yuuta that among the spirits that don't have human forms, there are some who also can't speak. However, they still understand what others say, making communication a bit easier. Pleased to meet the dolphin spirit, Yuuta introduced himself and hoped they would get along well. Finding the dolphin spirit very cute, Yuuta suggested to the spirit that they form a contract right away. Yuuta then thought it would be bad for the dolphin spirit to leave the water, remembering that their powers would be drained in places where nature's balance is disrupted. Dyne reassured Yuuta that the dolphin spirit would be fine since she would be tied in a contract with him. When the contract is formed, the contractor automatically supplies the spirit with magic power. If Yuuta supplies his spirit with magic power, the spirits he made contracts with will be able to operate in a specific area to a certain extent. Listening to Dyne, Yuuta wondered if he would be able to sustain 2 spirits with his current magic power. Dyne told Yuuta that as long as he didn't make any crazy demands, he'd probably be fine. At the moment, Yuuta didn't feel any magic power being drained when he asked Belle for something, and he also had no intentions of asking for something big, so he thought he'd be fine. Seeing the dolphin spirit's expression after he asked if she wanted to form a contract with him, Dyne then told Yuuta to give the dolphin spirit a beautiful name. Yuuta remained silent for some time as he couldn't casually pick a random name for the dolphin spirit. Thinking of names related to water, Yuuta finally decided to name the dolphin spirit Rain. The name carried Yuta's hope that rain would once again fall on the land of the dead. Rain loved her new name and immediately showed affection toward Yuuta. Dyne congratulated Yuuta for forming a contract and hoped that Yuuta would take care of Rain. Yuuta still felt some doubts about the contract process, as it was the second time he had felt nothing. Yuuta and his low-ranked spirits then went to the sea. Yuuta felt frustrated since he was only able to walk on the shore the last time he visited the sea. Seeking revenge, Yuuta planned to catch so many fish that he would be begged to stop. Calling his 2 officers, Yuuta told them that he had a very important task for them. However, Yuuta immediately became worried when he saw Belle looking clueless. Too late to turn back, Yuuta decided to push through with some force. When Belle responded to Yuta's order, he felt relieved as he managed to push through somehow. With a magical pouch with infinite storage at his disposal, Yuuta ordered the 2 to secure the seafood and gather as much as they could. Seeing them respond to his command, Yuuta told them to proceed. Observing the 3, Sylphy was confused, wondering what kind of game they were playing. Yuuta told Sylphy that he would be collecting some shellfish and asked what she would do. Sylphy's expression remained unchanged as she asked Yuuta if he had no plans to answer her question. Giving up, Sylphy told Yuuta she would just hang around since she couldn't help them. After some time, both Belle and Rain secured a lot of seafood. However, Yuuta didn't expect his magic pouch would be unable to hold any living beings. Left with no other option, Yuuta decided to season the seafood on the spot. First, Yuuta extracted the sand from the shells and then steamed them with sake. As for the kelp-like thing that Yuuta obtained, he planned to leave it out to dry for the time being. Though the seafood Yuuta gathered looked a lot like shellfish, he wondered if it would actually be edible. Asking for Sylphy's help, Yuuta asked if the seaweed and shellfish he gathered were edible. Sylphy believed they were edible, having once seen them sold at a port in town. However, she wasn't sure if they would taste good. Listening to Sylphy, Yuuta was relieved to learn the food he gathered was edible. As Yuuta was about to cook, Sylphy became curious about what he was doing. Since Yuuta still didn't have cooking tools, he thought he'd start by preparing the things he could use. What Yuuta currently needed was a stove, a lid for steaming, and tableware for the food. Using his magical survival knife, Yuuta scraped away at the rocks until they became a lid the size and shape of a shovel. Using the magical saw, Yuuta improved his stove by keeping the sides open to let air flow. Cutting what he needed smoothly, Yuuta found it surprisingly fun to make something. He shaped the driftwood he found into tableware. After finishing his cookingware setup, Yuuta started cooking the shellfish. After some time, he was able to finish cooking his sake-steamed shells. Amazed by the scent of the food, Sylphy asked Yuuta if the dish was from his homeland. Yuuta responded that it was and mentioned how proud he was of the dish, which he made using sake from his homeland. When Yuuta offered Sylphy the food, he remembered that spirits don't need to eat. Salivating over the shellfish, Sylphy told Yuuta that, although spirits don't need to eat, that doesn't mean they can't. Though they could eat the food, Sylphy hesitated as the shellfish looked like a luxurious dish. After Yuuta told her there was plenty to share and not to hold back, Sylphy accepted his offer and tasted a shellfish. After one taste, Sylphy found Yuta's shellfish appetizing. Receiving a warm smile from Sylphy, Yuuta guessed that the world he was currently in had similar taste to Japan. Yuuta then suggested Sylphy drink the soup, as the flavor of the seashells had seeped into it. Drinking the soup, Sylphy was caught off guard, not expecting the flavor to be so rich. Relieved that Sylphy liked his cooking, Yuuta took a bite for himself. Tasting the shellfish, Yuuta was amazed as the food exceeded his expectations. Finding it very delicious, Yuuta thought of making more. Realizing he may have cooked too many shellfish, he hoped he had made enough tableware for all the food. Yuuta was surprised when Belle called his name, informing him that they had caught more food. Praising both Belle and Rain for their hard work, Yuuta was still shocked by the capabilities of a low-ranked water spirit. When Belle asked Yuuta what their next task was, he was surprised Belle hadn't forgotten. Though pleased, Yuuta felt a bit worried as he sensed Sylphy's menacing stare. He then ordered Belle and Rain to blow some wind to dry the seaweed faster. Seeing them salute, Yuuta became very worried as they were getting too into his orders. After her observation, Sylphy reminded Yuuta not to teach low-ranked spirits strange things. Yuuta learned that the fish were the same as in his world and was even surprised to find shrimp and crabs. Sylphy warned Yuuta that eating a certain fish could cause something funny to happen. Seeing Yuta's worried look, Sylphy told him she was just joking and asked if he planned to return after he was done. Yuuta then remembered he needed to stop by the mountain to pick up rocks for building the pond. Since Yuuta was headed to the mountain, Sylphy suggested he take many. She shared her idea of building a wall around the pond once it was built to keep out magical beasts. Listening to Sylphy, Yuuta realized she made a good point, as it would also make the place safer to live. With Yuta's food and water problems solved, his next task was to create a comfortable environment for them to live in. Setting his priorities straight, Yuuta planned to hold a seafood party for now. After drying out the seaweed, Belle and Rain returned, eager to work on Yuta's next task. After his last order, Yuuta had to explain that "yes sir" is only used when replying to a special task. After cooking the food, Yuuta announces that dinner is ready, which excites everyone. Sylphy is surprised by the amount of fish that Yuuta fried. Since they caught a lot of fish, Yuuta wanted to try them immediately. Yuuta asked Sylphy to join them since there's still plenty of food and he could store some leftovers in his bag. Seeing so much food, Sylphy accepted Yuta's offer. As they start their seafood party, Yuuta tells Belle and Rain that if there's any fish they want to eat, they just have to tell him, and he will take it out for them. When Belle requested the fish she caught, Yuuta took it out and was about to cut it into small pieces when Belle told him there was no need and immediately took a bite. Seeing Belle's expression, Yuuta becomes worried and instructs her to spit the food out. However, after swallowing the food, Belle's expression changed. Hearing Belle's comment, Yuuta was relieved to learn that Belle liked the food. Wanting Yuuta to taste the fish as well, Belle shoved the fish right into Yuta's mouth. Seeing Rain beside him, Yuuta guessed that Rain wanted to eat the shrimp as she kept staring at it. Yuuta tried to help Rain by peeling the shell off first. However, he was speechless after witnessing how Rain devoured the food. Though the two low-ranked spirits looked adorable, Yuuta did not expect them to behave differently when eating. Seeing the two spirits enjoy their food, Yuuta guessed that their behavior was just fine. After being told by Sylphy that she would just eat the fish she wanted, Yuuta then went ahead and looked for the fish he wanted the most. After eating the clams, which were very similar to the food he used to eat back in his world, Yuuta wanted to challenge himself by trying to eat some otherworldly-looking fish. However, Yuuta became worried and regretted challenging himself, wondering if the fish he chose was edible. Yuuta tried to make sense of eating it, thinking about how the fish resembled a colorful fish from Okinawa. Taking his first bite, Yuuta did not expect the fish to be so hot. However, after swallowing the fish, Yuuta was amazed at how delicious it was. Yuuta liked the fish's skin, as it had a firm texture and was very juicy. Yuuta then imagined how the fish would taste if he simmered it in soy sauce. However, Yuuta knew that simmered fish without rice is just pure hell. Although Yuuta did buy some cooked rice packets, he was unable to cook them since he did not have a microwave to heat them. Pleased with how the fish tasted, Belle approached Yuuta, wanting to eat another dish. Finding the fish that Belle selected delicious, Yuuta decided to go for a second round as well. After their meal, Yuuta stored the leftovers in his bag. Yuuta did not expect they would still have so much food left, even though they ate so much. Yuuta wished that Dyne could have joined them for the meal. Sylphy agreed with Yuuta, but there wasn't enough clean water for Dyne to stay long. Noticing that the two low-ranked spirits were missing, Yuuta was told that both Belle and Rain went for an after-meal exercise. Yuuta was impressed with the two, knowing they were still fine after eating so much, while he himself could hardly move at all. Seeing Yuuta so happy with the fish he caught, Sylphy was glad that Yuuta liked the fish so much. Speechless at first, Yuuta then called Sylphy's attention and thanked her. Surprised, Sylphy's facial expression changed as she did not expect Yuuta to thank her. Expressing his gratitude, Yuuta explained that if it weren't for Sylphy, he would have been dead a long time ago, which is why he wanted to thank her. Sylphy told Yuuta that he did not have to worry about it since she was having fun as well. Yuuta felt bad that he kept asking for Sylphy's help all the time. In order to pay back for all the things that Sylphy had done for him, Sylphy only asked that Yuuta lead an interesting life. Though Sylphy admitted it would be fun if Yuuta continued to face unexpected events, she clarified that Yuuta just had to live the life he liked. Having high expectations for Yuuta, Sylphy told him that surviving in the land of the dead is a better event than one could ask for. Returning from their stroll, Belle and Rain were asked if they were finished playing. Yuuta then asked Sylphy if she could do him a favor by helping him level up. Since Yuuta would have to do a lot of labor moving forward, he thought he could level up to raise his stamina and also wanted to see how strong Rain's skills were. Yuuta felt relieved as Belle reassured him that Rain was very useful. Hunting down magical beasts, Yuuta forgot how unfairly powerful Spirit's magic was after witnessing the two low-ranked spirits obliterate the magical beasts. During the battle, Yuuta learned that the two have 3 types of abilities. The first is Wind Blade, next is Wind Blast, and lastly is Small Tornado. Yuuta then asked Sylphy if spirits have recovery magic aside from offensive magic. Though there are spirits that have recovery magic, Sylphy told Yuuta that none of them had it. Spirits can only use magic respective to their element, which is why the only spirits who can use recovery magic are life spirits. From what Sylphy heard, ordinary magic is a technique controlled by the church. Yuuta immediately thought that the church may be profiting from the skill. Yuuta thought Rain might have recovery magic since she gave the impression of using water magic. When Yuuta asked Sylphy if she could bring a life spirit to the land of the dead, as she did with Dyne, Sylphy was reluctant to do so, as the land of the dead is a place where all forms of life completely wither. A spirit that governs life would find the land of the dead a harsh place that constantly wears away at their mentality. Even if Yuuta formed a contract with a life spirit, their heart would not last, especially if it's a low-ranking spirit with which Yuuta could form a contract. Listening to Sylphy, Yuuta understood why she would be reluctant to call a life spirit. To bring a life spirit to the area, Yuuta asked if he needed to gather a lot of people. Sylphy clarified with Yuuta that it didn't have to be people. If the place were filled with nature, like plants or animals, then it would not be a problem. For the time being, Yuuta would get stronger once he raised his level, and Sylphy encouraged him to work hard in leveling up. Though he had already formed a contract twice, Yuuta still wondered how the process of contract making worked. Yuuta became anxious upon learning that he would not be healed, as they did not have a spirit that could use recovery magic. Seeing Yuta's expression, Sylphy felt concerned and instructed both Belle and Rain to help Yuuta calm down. After receiving a hug from Belle and Rain, Yuuta finally calmed down and became more eager to increase his level. Feeling content with the amount of rocks, sand, and steam water, Yuuta notices Sylphy's facial expression, which makes him curious. Although Sylphy understands how abnormal Yuta's tools were, she still couldn't help but be shocked after witnessing how they smashed the rock mountains so quickly. Knowing that the world they live in uses magic, Yuuta was sure that there was someone who could blow away the mountain with ease. Agreeing with Yuuta, Sylphy shares that she hasn't seen or heard of a tool that could do the same, which amazes her. With Yuta's power alone, Sylphy was sure that Yuuta would be guaranteed good pay and working conditions. Though Yuuta tried his best to avoid the human countries because he was afraid of war, he was slightly swayed after listening to Sylphy. Not expecting to finish his task much earlier, Yuuta guessed that he could make a house for the rest of the day. Yuuta wanted to hurry up and build a fountain for Rain, but he was worried that he might fail since he rushed the task. Sylphy giggles as she sees that Yuuta can still feel hungry, even though he didn't break a sweat. Embarrassed, Yuuta decided to return to eating his lunch. After having his lunch, Yuuta then started with the construction. Yuuta plans to set a wall first using the rocks he mined, placing the water hole right in the middle. Removing the rock from his magic bag, both Yuuta and Sylphy felt the pressure after seeing the huge size of the rock. Since Yuuta didn't know much about construction, he just chose the rocks based on sturdiness. Yuuta was pleased to hear when Sylphy complimented the quality of the rock he mined, as it was strong enough to prevent zombies and skeletons from waltzing in. Yuuta immediately became worried after Sylphy told him that the death lizards might still break through. Wanting to observe first, Yuuta planned to think of another way if the wall wasn't good enough. Knowing that Sylphy agreed with him, Yuuta then continued lining the rocks up and making adjustments along the way. Using his magic shovel, Yuuta scraped off bits of the mountain rocks he had gathered. After finishing lining up the rocks, Yuuta hoped that the space was adequate. Although there was nothing but dried red soil, Yuuta felt oddly attached to it after treating the land like it was his own. Sylphy congratulated Yuuta for a job well done, sharing that she felt excited just watching Yuuta work from above. After being teased by Sylphy when he realized that the placement was gradually falling out of place, Yuuta told Sylphy that she should at least give some advice since she was watching. Sylphy reminded Yuuta again that she couldn't lend him a hand since they did not sign a contract. Sylphy then suddenly became curious about where Rain and Belle had run off to. Yuuta told Sylphy that he had asked the two low-ranked spirits to play somewhere else since the area would be very dangerous due to the ongoing construction. Yuuta felt sorry for not being able to give the two spirits the attention that they needed. Yuuta told Belle and Rain to return when the sun set. In order to live an ideal life in another world, one must build an ideal home. The idea helped drive Yuta's motivation in making his own home. However, it was very different from what they had expected. With a house made only of rocks, Yuuta told Sylphy that there was nothing he could do, since he had no materials other than rocks. Yuuta did his best building the house on his own. The layout consisted of 2 rooms, a bedroom, and a kitchen. For the kitchen, Yuuta installed the stove, table, and benches. For the bedroom, Yuuta also made a bed from rocks, covering it with sand as a substitute for a mattress. Yuuta also used driftwood as a substitute for pillows. Looking at the bed he made, Yuuta had to confirm with Sylphy if the bed looked a lot like a coffin. Sylphy didn't want to say the exact words and just told Yuuta that the bed didn't look like one. When Sylphy asked if it really bothered him that much, Yuuta explained how he saw it as a bad omen. Yuuta had never paid attention to any omens before, but the fact that luck was considered one of the vital stats changed Yuta's perspective on things. Yuuta already had no luck when he was sent to the land of the dead, and if things were to get worse, Yuuta believed that he couldn't take it anymore. After listening to Yuuta, Sylphy then suggested shaving off the edges and making the bed round instead. Finding it a good idea, Yuuta immediately shaped his bed, believing that it would change the mood. With the newly shaped bed, Yuuta then thought that his bed now looked a lot like a capsule. Yuuta shared how he felt like he was going to be put into cryostasis inside the bed. After hearing Belle's voice, Yuuta decided to call it a day and ate his dinner. The next day, Yuuta couldn't believe how his body didn't feel sore at all. Yuuta believed that up until now it was probably the best sleep he had ever had. After being greeted by Belle and Rain with a good morning, Yuuta mentioned how he was about to eat breakfast and asked the two if they wanted to join him. Accepting Yuta's offer, the three thanked the food before munching it down. Observing the two, Yuuta noticed how Rain had a decent and well-mannered eating etiquette while Belle acted like a normal toddler would. Dyne visited Yuuta and wanted to confirm if he was going to finish the water hole today. Yuuta confirmed it and told Dyne that he was currently in the middle of making the pipe. Using his tools, Yuuta demonstrated to Dyne how to create a pipe. After witnessing Yuta's work, Dyne was amazed and praised him by patting his head. Yuuta asked Dyne if it would be okay for him to make the fountain an inverted pyramid instead of a bowl. Dyne didn't mind as long as the shape held enough water. Relieved that Dyne had no problem, Yuuta decided to proceed with his pyramid plan. After being praised by Dyne, Yuuta sensed Sylphy's presence from behind, which made him nervous. Continuing with his work, Yuuta was able to finish the pyramid-shaped funnel in just a day. Seeing his work, Yuuta then received praise from everyone. Now doing her part, Dyne didn't want to let Yuta's effort go to waste. Yuuta remained speechless the moment Dyne started chanting the ritual prayer, as he thought that Dyne had become someone completely different from her usual self. Staring at Dyne made Yuuta wonder what the Great Spirit's power really was. All of a sudden, Dyne stopped chanting, and Sylphy explained that Dyne couldn't think of what to chant and decided to give up halfway. Before Yuuta could finish his words, he was surprised upon seeing water gushing out of the hole, immediately filling the funnel. Dyne then called Yuuta, asking if he saw her amazing work. Worried about saying what he truly felt, Yuuta just praised Dyne's work, pretending to be grateful for the time being. Yuuta still found it hard to believe that there was clear water coming out of the land of the dead. When Yuuta asked if it was okay for him to drink the water, Dyne responded yes, and that the water was extremely delicious. Seeing Yuuta drink the water, Dyne then told him that the water of the Great Spirit was certified. The flavor was distinctly different from everyday water. After gulping the water, Yuuta thought of apologizing as he had no knowledge about the flavor of water. However, Yuuta still found the cold water really delicious, especially in such hot weather. Getting pumped up, Belle then asked Yuuta if they could go play with the water. Yuuta didn't mind, however the water's purpose was for drinking. Dyne then interrupted Yuuta, informing him that it was fine since spirits do not contaminate water. Sylphy then reminded Yuuta how they dissolve themselves into the wind, pointing out how it would not make sense that beings like them could pollute nature. Listening to Sylphy, Yuuta decided to approve Belle's request. Both Belle and Rain immediately jumped into the water and started playing. Yuuta then called Sylphy as he wanted to ask something of her. Though Sylphy had already guessed what Yuta's question was, he still asked what it was. Feeling extremely uneasy, Yuuta asked what Dyne had just done, and if the ritual she performed had failed since she gave up halfway. Sylphy explained that there was no reason for her to pray to the Lord of Spirits to begin with. As great spirits, Sylphy shared that they could make decisions for themselves, and since a 1,000-year-old prayer sounded nice, Dyne went ahead with the ritual to show off. Yuta's admiration shattered upon learning that the ritual Dyne performed was all an act. In reality, Dyne could just finish her part with a flick of her finger. Yuuta could no longer see Dyne as a gentle and alluring older sister, but rather a gentle and useless one. Nevertheless, the fountain was still completed thanks to Dyne. Although Yuta's dreams may have been shattered, he still had to thank her regardless. As Yuuta was about to express his gratitude to Dyne, he immediately gave up upon seeing Dyne teaching Belle and Rain something spectacular, similar to how she made the fountain. Since Yuuta had now finished with the base and the fountain, Sylphy asked him if he was going to call it a day and have dinner. However, seeing Yuuta with a gloomy expression, Sylphy asked what was wrong. Although Yuuta still had a lot of fish stored, he was now getting sick and tired of having seafood every day. Sylphy suggested changing how Yuuta seasoned his food. Yuuta had already tried the idea, but there were no other ingredients to go with the seasoning. Yuuta thought to himself how naive he had been to think that he could survive with just seafood. While Yuuta was fine without other meat, he wished he could at least have some vegetables. He then thought of an idea, considering sending Belle on an errand since they already had plenty of money and magic stones. Sylphy immediately told Yuuta that his idea would not work since making contact with others by touching and talking would be impossible for Belle. Sylphy understood if Yuuta had forgotten that fact, as he had been spending so much time with Belle. Yuuta was still worried, knowing that if he continued consuming just fish, he would eventually develop a vitamin deficiency. Belle then suggested that he could harvest plants from somewhere surrounded by greenery. Sylphy thought it would also be impossible for Belle to perform such a task, but with Rain's help, Belle might be able to do it, although it would take some time. Yuuta became excited as he finally found a way to obtain plants. If Belle could bring plants to Yuuta, it would solve his food issue and also help build up the environment. To achieve a greener environment, Yuuta realized he had to make a field first in order to grow vegetables and plants. Although Yuuta hated working with soil, he found it more enjoyable than working on the fountain. When Sylphy told Yuuta that his plan wouldn't work, Yuuta became curious as to why, believing it would be okay since they already had water and were protected by the fence. Sylphy told Yuuta that the land of the dead was exactly what the name suggested. All of the soil in the area was completely infertile, and if Yuuta planned to grow plants on the land, he needed to start soil amelioration first. Otherwise, his idea wasn't viable. Clueless, Yuuta asked Sylphy what soil amelioration was. Sylphy didn't know the details since she wasn't an earth spirit, but all she knew was that water alone wouldn't cut it. Yuuta became depressed knowing there was so much soil, yet he couldn't use any of it. Thinking about ameliorating the soil, Yuuta wondered if mixing the soil with something that had nutrients would work. However, the only nutritious thing he had right now was seafood. Yuuta remembered how people in the past used small fish as fertilizer to grow cotton. Thinking of using dried fish as a replacement, Yuuta wondered if it would work. After doing trial and error, Yuuta decided to create a small field and experiment with it the next day. Knowing what was good and bad, Yuuta became more enthusiastic about working hard. Dyne approached Yuuta after learning that he was making a field. Yuuta asked Dyne if it was okay for him to use the water for his field. Since Yuuta was about to make a field, Dyne asked if he wanted to hear her advice. Left with no other choice, Dyne advised Yuuta to dig a very deep hole and surround it with boulders. Since it wasn't good to store water completely, Dyne suggested making a few small holes inside the boulders. Yuuta was surprised that Dyne actually gave proper advice. He thanked Dyne and told her he would take note of it. Realizing it would take more time than expected, Yuuta thought to just prepare the fertilizer while making the fields. Calling both Belle and Rain, Yuuta instructed the two to use water from the fountain to wash away the seawater inside the small fish and shellfish. Proving her worth, Rain shocked Yuuta by using her abilities to make the water float from the fountain and place it on top of the fish and shellfish. Taking in the fish and shellfish, Rain cleaned them inside the water like a washing machine. Pouting, Belle asked Yuuta what her task was. Yuuta then told Belle to blow the fish and shellfish once Rain finished washing them. Yuuta and his two low-ranked spirits were happy after finishing their tasks. Seeing both tasks completed at the same time, Dyne wondered if it was related to the contract. Sylphy doubted it was related to the contract after observing Yuta's ups and downs and just thought it was pure coincidence. Yuuta expressed how extremely anxious he was. However, there was nothing he could do about the situation. so he would just have to do whatever he could. Staring at Yuuta, Sylphy told him that if the result showed some promise, she would call the Earth Spirit for him. Excited, Yuuta thought how nice it was to have support from someone like Dyne. Super pumped, Yuuta went ahead and cut the dried fish to make it easier to mash in the mortar. When Yuuta tried cutting the fish on the stone slab, he was speechless as he cut through not just the fish but also the stone slab. Even if Yuuta adjusted his strength in cutting, it would still take a lot of effort since the objects were too small. Left with no other choice, Yuuta decided to ask for help. With Belle's assistance, Yuuta achieved his task of cutting the fish. Using the handle of the hammer, Yuuta kept mashing the small pieces of fish. Seeing the two spirits watch him grind the fish, Yuuta warned them it was dangerous. However, he then wondered if physical attacks could harm Belle and Rain. Yuuta questioned if he could hurt the spirits with his physical attacks, since he was able to touch and talk to them. Having that thought in mind, Yuuta realized that he might be a dangerous presence toward Belle and Rain. Too focused on grinding the fish, Yuuta did not notice that Sylphy was already calling him. Surprised, Yuuta called Sylphy boss as he responded by memory. Confused as to why she was called boss by Yuuta, Sylphy then told him that the fertilizer should already be ready by now. Seeing how ground the fertilizer was, Yuuta agreed and stopped mashing the fish. All that Yuuta needed to do next was to put the fertilizer into the soil and then spread it over the field, and he would be done. Both Belle and Rain approached Yuuta, eager to help with his task. However, the two were shocked when Yuuta told them that they didn't have to help him with the work since he could do it by himself. When Yuuta advised the two to stay away from him for a bit, he couldn't bear seeing the two's tearful eyes. Feeling the pressure, Yuuta ordered Belle to blow some wind to level the soil that he had already spread out, while Rain would water the soil to dampen it. After mixing the fertilizer with the soil, Belle then proceeded to blow wind on it. Yuuta then gave Rain the signal to flood the soil completely. Using her abilities, Rain was able to properly dampen the soil, judging that it looked fertilized. As the two great spirits observed the soil, Dyne believed that the soil was well dampened, while Sylphy, who had no idea what was happening, believed that calling an earth spirit could help determine the soil's status. Ecstatic, Yuuta asked Sylphy if she could call an earth spirit to help them. Sylphy agreed, but before she would call an earth spirit, she sensed that something had happened and asked Yuuta about it. When Yuuta told Sylphy nothing had happened, she then told him she had never remembered him being so absent-minded, and that he had even told both Belle and Rain to stay away from him. Seeing Sylphy's worried expression, Yuuta had no choice but to share his worries. Finding it hard to tell Dyne and Sylphy, Yuuta still told the two of the possibility that his tools could endanger spirits. Since Yuuta could touch the spirits, he believed that Sylphy and the other spirits wouldn't want to face someone with such dangerous tools, and he thought that Sylphy and the others just didn't want to say it out loud. As the two great spirits remained speechless, Yuuta became nervous as he no longer knew if all of them could stay together. Sylphy then asked Yuuta to bring out his hammer as they planned to test it out. Surprised by Sylphy's suggestion, Yuuta told her that he did not have the courage to hit them. Sylphy clarified with Yuuta that she just wanted to test his theory. As Sylphy slowly reached for the magical hammer, Yuuta became very nervous. When Sylphy's hand phased through the hammer, Yuuta felt relieved, while Dyne congratulated him, saying he could now be at ease. Wanting to check something else, Sylphy asked Yuuta to touch her hand using the magical hammer. Surprised, Yuuta once again became worried, and was very hesitant to do Sylphy's task. Sylphy clarified with both Dyne and Yuuta to just touch her hand, not hit her. After ordering Yuuta to do the task gently, Sylphy's hand trembled. With just the thought of touching Sylphy's hand gently, the two were surprised when the hammer phased through her. Seeing that nothing had happened, Dyne also felt relieved, knowing for certain that Yuta's magical hammer would not be able to touch them. Sylphy shared how worried she had been at first, but then realized her worries were useless, since Yuuta did not possess a power that could hurt them. Seeing Yuuta on his knees, Sylphy asked if he was alright. Relieved to learn he would not be a threat to his friends, Yuuta ended up losing all his strength. When Yuuta was told he was just exaggerating, he told Sylphy that he was worried everyone would become cautious and distance themselves from him, knowing that the only thing he could rely on in the world were the spirits. Both Dyne and Sylphy told Yuuta that even if he had such an ability and noticed it, they still wouldn't do anything like abandoning him. After knowing Yuuta, Sylphy was confident he wouldn't hurt them and even found him more interesting after seeing how worried he was for them. Seeing Sylphy's expression, Yuuta guessed that the two now trusted him. The next day, Dyne suddenly stared at Yuuta, asking him if he was thinking of something dirty. Nervous, Yuuta told Dyne that there was nothing on his mind, and that he was just wondering what the Earth Spirit might think about the field. Dyne was a bit doubtful of Yuta's answer, as she could feel irritation and had been feeling it non-stop. Yuuta, who was now very nervous, was curious as to why Dyne had suddenly become so observant when she was usually carefree. As Yuuta wondered what the Earth Spirit would look like, he started imagining it first as an adult woman. Yuta's imagination shattered upon seeing that the great Earth Spirit was a chubby old man. Seeing Yuta's attitude, the Earth Spirit became annoyed and immediately turned his back. Yuuta apologized to the Earth Spirit, explaining that he had thought a beautiful girl would show up. Surprised that Yuuta was expecting a beautiful girl, the Earth Spirit reminded Yuuta that he was going to face a spirit. Yuuta explained that he frequently communicated with spirits and assumed that the Earth Spirit would also be a girl. In his panic, Yuuta later realized he had said something embarrassing. The Earth Spirit laughed, telling Dyne and Sylphy that spring would be coming to them sooner. Because Yuuta gave the Earth Spirit a good laugh, he decided to forgive him. The Great Earth Spirit then introduced himself as Nomos, and beside him was a low-ranked spirit who was still unnamed. Nomos immediately went straight to the point and asked Yuuta where the soil that Yuuta had made for farming was. Seeing that Nomos was very eager to see the soil, Yuuta then guided him to where the field was. After seeing the soil up close, Nomos informed Yuuta that his work was quite interesting. Surprised by Nomos' comment, Yuuta thought that there was no problem, and that he might proceed with planting. However, Nomos told Yuuta that with the condition of the soil, he believed they probably wouldn't be able to stay in the land of the dead with them. Yuuta teared up, realizing that things were not going to be easy, which he had already expected. Nomos was impressed with the plot that Yuuta cultivated. Even though it had a poor nutrient balance, Yuuta did very well mixing the soils with other materials to further enrich the plot. However, Nomos tells Yuuta that it still lacks the absolute most important component. Yuta's plot lacks microbes, or in other words, beneficial microscopic organisms. The microbes help balance the nutrients in the soil, effectively preserving the soil's fertility as well as nature. Nomos tells Yuuta that it does not matter what minerals he mixes into the soil. Without the presence of microbes, the soil will not produce anything. Facing another problem, Yuuta asks Nomos what he needs to do in order for the soil to generate microbes. Nomos tells Yuuta that the answer to his problem is simple, and that he just needs to mix it with living soil. After being given an impossible solution, Yuuta asks Nomos if there are any other methods for obtaining it. After giving it much thought, Yuuta feels devastated when Nomos tells him that there are none. Yuuta could not believe that they could not produce the microbes from nothing, and asks Nomos if there are some unconventional ways of producing them. Nomos tells Yuuta that there are other ways, but then asks Yuuta if he believes that they could do it in the desolated land. Yuuta becomes depressed since, even though he has a cheat ability, he still could not do anything about his problem. Playing with Yuta's cheeks, Dyne tells Yuuta that she has seen living soil somewhere before. Yuta's eyes immediately brighten, and he asks Dyne where she saw the living soil. However, Dyne was still no help as she could not remember where she saw the living soil. Thinking deeply, Sylphy asks Dyne if she is talking about the soil at the bottom of the watering hole. After confirming Sylphy's guess, Sylphy then tells Yuuta that even though the soil has a different color, it may actually be better than soil from land. After taking out the soil from his magical bag, Yuuta asks Nomos to check the soil. Staring at the soil, Nomos tells Yuuta that even though the soil does not have many microbes, it is still considered living soil. If Yuuta were to mix the soil from the watering hole and let it rest with his plot, his plan of making a viable plot may actually work. Yuuta cheers in relief, but Nomos immediately tells him that it does not mean he can neglect the management duty after mixing the soil in. Yuuta will have to make sure that the soil does not dry up, and must stay damp every day. After giving Yuuta a bunch of tips, Nomos then tells him that he will be back again in 10 days. Before Yuuta could say something, Nomos had already left. Believing that Nomos will come back again, Sylphy suggests that Yuuta better start doing what Nomos has instructed him. Feeling a vibe of an artisan from Nomos, Yuuta prepares himself so that he can earn Nomos' seal of approval the next time he visits. During their conversation, Yuuta noticed that the low-ranking spirit beside Nomos did not utter a single word, which made Yuuta wonder if he hated the land of the dead. Dyne then tells Yuuta that it was not the case, as she noticed the low-ranking spirit observing the surroundings with great interest. After 10 days, Nomos once again returned along with the low-ranking spirit. Yuuta apologizes to Nomos for pestering him, asking him to come over and over again. Nomos did not mind as long as they could cultivate a field on the land of the dead. Seeing the low-ranking spirit behind Nomos, Yuuta hoped that the low-ranking spirit would like the place. Grabbing the dirt, Nomos assessed that it still lacks many things but believes that the soil is good enough for them to make it work. Yuuta cheers as he receives Nomos' assessment. Seeing that Yuuta was able to make a living plot on the land of the dead, Nomos starts to think that Yuuta deserves more praise. However, Nomos then reminds Yuuta that the soil is of only the bare minimum quality and that he will desert him right away if Yuuta slacks off. Scared of Nomos, Yuuta tells Nomos that he will fully comply and asks for guidance. Nomos then goes ahead and uses his magic to mix the soils together. Seeing the soil form like a tornado, Yuuta couldn't help but be amazed. After mixing the soils together, Nomos tells Yuuta that all he needs to do is spread it out, using the fertilized soil as a foundation. Yuuta thanks Nomos for all of his help and believes that Nomos helped him for the sake of the land of the dead. Nomos clarifies with Yuuta that he did not cooperate with him, but rather that Yuuta cooperated with him. Almost forgetting something, Nomos then tells Yuuta to form a contract with the low-ranking spirit. As Yuuta keeps asking questions to the low-ranking spirit, it just keeps on nodding in response. Seeing how determined the low-ranking spirit was, Yuuta decides to name him Yale, which meant productive and capable of nurturing vegetation crops. In other words, rich soil. Yale nodded as confirmation that he liked the name. Yuuta was surprised when Yale suddenly spoke, commenting on how lovely the name was. Yuuta did not expect that Yale's voice would be very cute. Nomos himself also admitted that the name Yale is very lovely. Moving forward, Yale will be fundamentally in charge of the management of the field's soil. Seeing Yale staring at him, Yuuta asks if he needs anything. Yuuta did not expect that Yale would request to have the forest spirits' cooperation as soon as they could, deeming the land in dire need of a forest. Laughing so hard, Nomos tells Yale that the forest spirits would have a hard time staying in a place where plants do not grow. When Yale asks Yuuta if they really could not call the forest spirits, Yuuta submits to Yale's cuteness and asks Nomos if they need more plants for the forest spirits to come, to which Nomos responds that they do. Facing the problem of locating the needed seeds, Sylphy then remembers Yuta's plan to send Belle and Rain on an errand. Although it will take some time to complete, Sylphy believes that it will not be a problem sending the two to go looking for seeds. When Yuuta asks Sylphy how long it will take, Yuuta is shocked to learn that the search will take at least 4 days. Worrying for Belle and Rain's well-being, Dyne reassures Yuuta that the two will be fine and will return after collecting the seeds. Still worried, since the two low-ranking spirits looked a lot like kids, Dyne reveals to Yuuta that both Belle and Rain are much older than him. Yuuta was mentally shocked upon learning that the two young-looking low-rank spirits were much older than him. Yuuta still believes that both Belle and Rain are mentally immature, which worries him greatly. When Yuuta decided to go instead of Belle and Rain, Sylphy reminded him that he still has to maintain the soil. Both Dyne and Sylphy pointed out that since Yuuta can't fly, the journey would take several times longer. Sylphy then whispered in Yuta's ear, informing him that she would also visit the forest spirits and would not be back for a few days. Realizing what Sylphy intended to do, Yuuta thanked her for always helping him out. Not wanting her real purpose to be revealed, Sylphy reminded Yuuta that she was taking the chance to meet an old friend. Yuuta found Sylphy very cool and planned to make her a statue so he could offer his thanks every day. Now, with Sylphy tagging along, Yuuta no longer worried about Belle and Rain. Upon calling Belle and Rain's names, Yuuta couldn't bear to send the two cute spirits away. Changing his tone, Yuuta told the two that he would now assign them an important mission, and asked if they had the determination to complete it. As the two performed a salute, Yuuta then disclosed the mission to Belle and Rain. After informing them about their task of retrieving the seeds of edible plants, Yuuta once again asked the two with a worried look if they were really going to be fine. The two smiled, reassuring Yuuta that they could complete the mission. Getting into the moment, Yuuta unconsciously included C in his drill sergeant manner. After giving out the needed instructions, Yuuta said farewell to both Belle and Rain. Seeing Sylphy leave, Yuuta prayed that everyone would come back safe and sound. Still worried, Yuuta asked Dyne if the three would be alright. Dyne reassured Yuuta that the three would be fine since they were just carrying seeds with them. Relieved, Yuuta thanked Dyne. When Yuuta still asked Dyne if the three were really going to be fine, Nomos reached his limit and told Yuuta that what he was doing was depressing. Nomos then asked Yuuta if he could work on something to distract himself. Though Yuuta agreed with the idea, he was unable to do it since he had already finished watering and inspecting the field. Nomos then suggested that Yuuta start preparing a spot for growing a forest. Yuuta was shocked upon hearing Nomos mention the forest. Nomos then reminded Yuuta of the bare minimum requirements, which were to plant some sprouts in order to summon forest spirits. Nomos suggested that Yuuta ought to start getting ready for the future. Although Yuuta agreed with Nomos, making a forest was still not easy work. All Yuuta wanted was to eat some vegetables, but somehow his whole plan spiraled out of control. Since they would be making a forest, Yuuta thought they would need a lot of space for it. However, observing his base, it was all too congested, which left no space for a forest to grow. While drawing a blueprint for the forest, Yuuta realized that he would have to make another base as big as his current one. Running short on boulders, Yuuta planned to level a whole mountain just to compensate for the lack of materials. Once Yuuta quarried the boulders, he would have to follow it up with more steps, which is not something one can simply try out. Seeing Yuuta no longer thinking about Belle and Rain, Dyne and Nomos became happy. After calculating the amount of boulders he needed, Yuuta now needed to find a suitable mountain to quarry from. Since Yuuta would be vulnerable, he planned on taking Yale with him. Needing one more helper, Yuuta was stuck with two options: Dyne or Nomos. Without hesitation, Yuuta asked Nomos for help in gathering some boulders. Annoyed that Yuuta did not pick her, Dyne asked for the reason. Yuuta tried explaining that Nomos would be more fitting since he shares the same element. However, Dyne did not accept the answer and forced herself to accompany Yuuta since Sylphy entrusted him to her. Knowing that he would never get proper advice from Dyne, Yuuta thought that having her accompany him would not be a problem, and decided to have Yale and Dyne tag along. Starting his new task, Yuuta was surprised when a death lizard suddenly appeared. He then told Dyne to inform him when monsters were nearby. But seeing Dyne looking clueless, Yuuta gave up on explaining and immediately searched for his magical hammer in his inventory. Remembering that Yale was with them, Yuuta asked if he could use magic to take the death lizard down. Stretching out his hand, Yale used his ability, called Entomb, to cover the death lizard with rocks and bury it deep in the ground. Shocked to see Yale's earth magic, Yuuta praised him. Realizing that the monsters were now buried, Yuuta was a bit disappointed since he wanted to collect the monsters' magic stones. Seeing Yale review what he had just said, Yuuta found it cute how earnest of a spirit Yale was. Returning his attention to Dyne, Yuuta asked her why she did not warn him about the approaching monsters. Yuuta was left speechless when Dyne revealed that she couldn't tell if monsters were approaching. When Yuuta asked Dyne if she couldn't detect enemies, Dyne told Yuuta that she could help in searching for water nearby, but was useless on land. Listening to Dyne, Yuuta immediately thought of calling out for help from Sylphy. When Yuuta asked Dyne why she volunteered to come with him, he became depressed upon remembering that it was Sylphy who assigned Dyne to protect him. Tugging on Yuta's clothes, Yale revealed that he could detect enemies on land. Yuuta teared up, realizing that he could rely at least on Yale. Observing Belle and Rain from a distance, Sylphy was right when she told Yuuta that there was nothing to worry about. Even after explaining to Yuuta that spirits are strong enough to take care of themselves, Yuuta still couldn't help but worry about the two low-rank spirits. Sylphy remembered how she was just soaring through the skies when Belle suddenly called for her, informing her of a human who could see, talk, and touch them. Sylphy couldn't believe it at first, but then saw for herself how Yuuta conversed with Belle and played with her. Seeing the two playing tag and going off in the wrong directions, Sylphy then thought that informing Yuuta they would be back within 4 days was a bad idea. Since Belle and Rain still haven't gone off course, she plans to observe for now and think about what to do afterward. Sylphy was speechless after seeing the two just playing around and wondered when they would be back on track with their mission. Since Sylphy never paid attention to how low-rank spirits behave, she never thought they would be so carefree. She wonders if she was just like Belle and Rain when she was a low-rank spirit. Arriving at the forest, both Belle and Rain cheered and called out to a spirit named Raya and announced they came to play with her. Sylphy was shocked and hoped the two did not forget about their errand. Coming out of the forest, a girl asked Belle if they came to play. When Belle mentioned that Sylphy told them to visit the forest, Raya was able to guess that the two were running an errand. When Raya noticed Sylphy's presence, Sylphy immediately gestured to Raya to keep her presence a secret. Accepting Sylphy's favor, Raya asked Belle what kind of mission was assigned to them. When Belle mentioned seeds, Raya guessed that the two wanted some edible seeds. Sylphy panicked, as the two did not convey Yuta's mission properly. Sylphy becomes nervous, afraid that the two made it all the way to this far distance just to forget everything. Kneeling down, Raya suggested that they try remembering the mission one more time, and to take it slowly. When Belle and Rain were asked about what Sylphy told them, Belle was able to remember the mission after thinking hard. Belle then tells Raya they need edible seeds that grow. Seeing Sylphy nod, Raya smiles as she now learned the mission assigned to the two. Clutching her fist, Sylphy was so proud of the two, believing that they could do it. Raya then informs the two to wait while she gets the seeds for them. Raya found the two quite adorable, as they even remembered to properly say thanks. After telling Raya their new names, Raya asked them where they plan on planting the seeds. Raya was shocked and immediately looked up when she heard that the two are planning to plant seeds in the land of the dead. Receiving confirmation from Sylphy that they plan on planting the seeds in the land of the dead, Raya then tells the low-rank spirits that she will be picking out some seeds that can survive under the heat. Sylphy was relieved as they were able to overcome the biggest trial so far. Handing over a pouch full of seeds, Raya asked the two if they could carry it through the land of the dead. When Belle responded that journeying back was no problem, Raya felt relieved and told the two to be careful on their way back. As the two left, Sylphy then approached Raya, apologizing for the trouble that Belle and Rain had caused her. Raya did not mind, as she found the two lively and adorable. When Raya asked Sylphy the whole story about the seeds and the low-rank spirits mission, Sylphy tells Raya that they are currently working in the land of the dead, together with a human who came from another world. After telling Raya about Yuta's unfortunate situation, Sylphy then shared the time when Belle informed her about Yuuta. Guessing that the two low-rank spirits formed a contract with Yuuta, Raya believed that Yuuta may be a person with high affinity for spirits, which she had no doubt would help Yuuta survive even in such conditions. All of a sudden, Sylphy revealed that Yuuta is way beyond having a high affinity for spirits. Sylphy shared how Yuuta can not only see and talk to them but even touch all of them. Raya was speechless, as she had never heard of someone who could touch spirits before. After being told that Yuuta is currently reclaiming the land of the dead, Raya asks Sylphy if she is trying to fool her. Sylphy totally understands how Raya feels but tells her that everything she said is the truth. Sylphy informs Raya that she can't form a contract with Yuuta for now because he lacks the MP. Sharing about the type of person Yuuta is, Raya could not believe what she heard. That a great spirit such as Sylphy intends to form a contract with a human from another world. Smiling, Sylphy reveals how she is not the only one that wishes to form a contract with Yuuta. Sylphy shared that Nomos is currently helping Yuuta, but she is not sure if Nomos intends to form a contract. But Sylphy was certain that Dyne also wishes to form a contract with Yuuta. Raya felt her head was about to overload upon learning that 3 great spirits are in one spot, helping a human cultivate the land of the dead. Raya was surprised when Sylphy revealed that Yuuta had already made a spring and field in the land of the dead, and even thought she was having a dream. Sylphy reassures Raya that it is not a dream, and proof of it is Belle and Rain on their way back to the land of the dead along with the seeds Raya provided. When Sylphy shared the real reason why she came with Belle and Rain, Raya did not expect that there would be a human who worries about spirits. When Sylphy suggested to Raya to come with them, Raya believed Sylphy's words and did not mind going to the land of the dead with her. However, Raya will not decide on whether she is staying or not until she sees it for herself. Fine with Raya's decision, Sylphy shares how Nomos also did not approve of the soil the first time he saw it but still ended up giving his approval. Sylphy then asks Raya if she finds it fascinating that the forest is being revived in the land of the dead, to which Raya agrees. Sylphy told Raya that she will come and get her once the seeds start to bud. Knowing that the seeds will be planted in the harsh environment of the land of the dead, Sylphy believes that it will take some time for the seeds to sprout. Before leaving, Sylphy tells Raya that she will bring along a low-rank spirit with her once she visits the land of the dead. The two then parted ways, hoping that the day would come for Sylphy to take her to the new land of the dead. 4 days had passed and Yuuta was staring at the sky waiting for Belle and Rain to return. Seeing Belle and Rain's silhouette, Yuuta felt relieved. Upon turning around, he was surprised when he saw Sylphy looking worn out. When Yuuta asked if something had happened, Sylphy revealed that she was thrown for a loop by Belle and Rain's completely unpredictable behavior. Sylphy told Yuuta that she would appreciate it if he no longer gave the two more errands for the time being. Though worn out, she still smiled when Yuuta praised her for following Belle and Rain. After calling for Belle and Rain, the three then hugged each other. Yuuta praised the two not just for returning safely, but for also completing the mission he had assigned them. When Belle and Rain handed him the seeds, Yuuta kept himself together and forced himself not to cry. Receiving the mission's objective, Yuuta told the two that they had completed their mission and asked them to get some rest. Seeing Belle and Rain respond to Yuuta, the great spirits and Yale were confused and did not know what to feel. Forgetting that he had an audience, Yuuta had to keep the conversation going so that things would not get awkward. Opening the pouch, Yuuta was surprised to see a lot of seeds and asked Nomos if he could tell what kind of seeds they were. Not knowing the specifics, Nomos told Yuuta that 2 types of seeds ought to grow leaves that are edible, and the other 2 have edible roots. Smiling, Yuuta wondered what kind of plants the seeds would grow into. He hoped the plants would have a similar taste to the ones from Japan. Stiffly approaching the soil, Sylphy asked Yuuta what was wrong as he had been standing in front of the field for a while. Yuuta shared that he was just reminiscing about how amazing it all was, digging out a water source, covering the ground with boulders, making fertilizer and plowing a field, and then finally obtaining seeds to sow. Admitting that Yuuta had done most of the hard work, Sylphy told him that the real challenge was about to begin. When Sylphy mentioned that Yuuta would have to grow the plants and make them into food, Yuuta became ecstatic, as he could not wait to raise the plants properly and enjoy the vegetables as a reward. When Yuuta asked for Nomos' help in sowing the seeds, Nomos was relieved, thinking the day was going to end at the rate Yuuta was going. After receiving instructions on how to sow the seeds, Yuuta then told everyone to immediately start sowing the seeds together. Everyone picked a seed and sowed it themselves. Seeing Belle and Rain stare at the seed they had sown, Yuuta informed the two that the seed would not sprout that quickly, even if they stared at it for a long time. When Belle asked Yuuta when the seeds would sprout, Yuuta also thought it was a good question and wondered about it too. When Yale shared how he believed that the seed would sprout in 4 to 5 days, Nomos added that the seed would sprout faster in a well-tended place, but on the land of the dead, the seeds would probably take longer. Even after being told that the seeds would sprout more slowly, Yuuta, Belle, and Rain remained excited. Yuuta then ordered Rain to sprinkle some water on the field to finish things up. As everyone finished sowing the seeds, the spirits noticed Yuuta checking his bag. When Yuuta was asked what he was doing, he explained that since it was a special day, he wanted to celebrate by treating everyone to some snacks from his world. Sylphy then asked Yuuta if he was sure about sharing his luxurious food. Yuuta reassured her that it was fine, as he believed that he wouldn't have come so far without everyone's help. Taking out chocolate from his world, the spirits wondered if they could even eat it. When Belle tried to eat the chocolate with its wrapper, Yuuta immediately told her to wait and instructed her to open the wrapper first to eat the chocolate. Staring at the chocolate, Dyne asked Yuuta if the snack was edible, as it looked like a black stick. Although Yuuta had reassured them, the two great spirits still had their doubts. Staring at the chocolate, Belle asked if the snack was delicious. When Yuuta confirmed it and reassured Belle that she would love it, Belle immediately ate the chocolate. Yuuta was relieved when Belle mentioned how she liked it. Remembering Rain, Yuuta then wondered if it was alright for her to eat chocolate in the first place. Since Rain is just a dolphin-shaped spirit, Yuuta decided to give her one. Seeing the two low-rank spirits enjoy the chocolate, Dyne asked the two if the chocolate was really delicious. Jealous, Dyne broke the chocolate in half and ate it. After munching the chocolate, Dyne was surprised at how delicious it was. Sylphy was getting tempted upon hearing the great comments coming from Dyne and Yale. On the other hand, Nomos did not like the chocolate, making Yuuta believe that Nomos was not fond of sweets. Since Nomos did not want to eat the chocolate, Yuuta suggested that he give it to Belle, but Sylphy interrupted them as she offered to eat the chocolate for Nomos. Yuuta was glad that Sylphy had taken a liking to the snack, but then wondered if it was alright for a great spirit to be so shameless. Yuuta then apologized to Nomos, and promised him that he would find something that he could enjoy. Nomos told Yuuta that it was fine, as he was already grateful for trying the foods from Yuta's world. Since they were celebrating a special occasion, Yuuta thought of handing out some liquor. The great spirit's eyes widened upon hearing Yuuta mention alcohol from his world. Surprised, Yuuta did not expect the great spirits to react in such a way, making him believe that something similar had happened before. Realizing that spirits liked alcohol, the great spirits cheered as Yuuta mentioned that he would take out some liquor from his world when they celebrated their next milestone. Seeing the three spirits looking excited, Yuuta revealed that it was only a 1.8-liter bottle, which meant not many cups would go around. The three spirits then whispered to each other, planning who to invite. Nervous, Yuuta told the three great spirits that he would not give them any if they were going to act that way. Although Yuuta was told that they were just kidding, doubt still hadn't left his mind. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 14. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.